I'm going to paint a goat using lots of orange and some blue. Like all complementary colours, there are always two. A loose and lively drawing is how I'll begin, using a 0.2mm nibbed marker made by Unipin. Next I'll get my Daler-Rowney mixed media paper really wet, then use a frayed brush to lay in tone and textures, you bet. Interactive acrylics will really flow well when mixed with a lot of water, and if you haven't tried them yet, then seriously consider it. You oughta. It's not quite the same uncontrollable unpredictability that a watercolor wash gives, but it provides unexpected patterns and brush marks, and for me, that's where the excitement lives. Having started with burnt umber, I add some paler, warmer, yellowy brown, then introduce blue highlights, because with my colours I like to go to town. This goat inhabits the warm climate of sunny Spain. Using straight out of the tube pure orange, I echo its terrain. Once the paint has completely dried, I feel the need to refine. So I add some expressive, curvy and characteristic line, making shadows darker and deeper with a glaze of blue ultramarine. Thanks to viewer Lorraine for providing the photo of this scene. Next, across the paper, I roll my brush, still coated in blue. Impressionist style bushes and trees create a distant view. I switch from translucent tinting to the more opaque titanium white to add a few more details, both subdued and bright. Repeating what's come before, I let the paint dry again, then add some finishing touches with my trusty pen. I hope you enjoyed this quick summary. Now here comes the painting's full story. So I let the paint dry and I've added some more Unipin marker lines with a slightly thicker nib. And I just wanted to highlight a few key details here. So the first one is with this horn, notice I've included some contour lines because the horns themselves have these little ridges which kind of run along them. But I've kind of ignored that and just put a selected few in and used the contour lines to describe the form of the horn. And this is one of the most effective and efficient ways of creating a 3D illusion on a two-dimensional surface. You can see by using the contours here, it really looks like they're wrapping round in and under and then back out again. I've deliberately used a different approach for this one here, just to make it look different to this one. And really there's very little described. Notice there's kind of a zigzag on the outline of that one there. This ear I've elongated slightly. I'll probably make use of that bit of white paper, and I'm going to probably keep that little sort of fractal pattern. I don't know what quite the right word is of the wet paint there. Other things with the tail, I want to keep the looseness of the tail, but I just added a few little marks to accentuate things. Coming down to the legs, I just added a little more refinement and structure to the toes, and on the whole that's more or less it in terms of the major bits of line work. Everything else is just kind of well, just general textural marks really. So let's add some more paint and really bring this thing to conclusion. So I'm going to start again by getting the paper very wet, and then using my little flat frayed brush, kind of grab some burnt umber, touch of ultramarine blue, perhaps a little bit more, and I want to put a glazing layer on to create some very dark shadows. So I've just added even more water to that paint that you just saw me mix up. And going back to looking at the big shapes on the animal here, just going to darken the big areas of shadow. But my hope is that by putting on this thin layer, not only will I be putting down some new textures within the brush marks themselves, but I'm hoping that the work I've done already won't be completely hidden either. Now I quite like the way the two back feet more or less disappear into shadow, so I'm deliberately going to leave that area rather unresolved. So far fairly content with what I've got down at the moment. So coming in now with my round brush, I'm just going to darken inside the tip of that ear and make things a little darker on top of the nose. Perhaps a little bit on the head. Now, up until now, I've been using tinting whites. I've switched to titanium white, which is the more opaque of the two. And I'm going back in with my little flat brush, grabbing a touch of the cad yellow and a touch of the orange, and little spritz of water just so that it's not completely straight out of the tube. I think in terms of the body, I'm pretty close to being finished there. So let's look at the head a bit more closely. So I've switched back to my round brush, and I'm just adding a touch more yellow to that colour that I just used. And we'll use that just along the tip of that ear. And I don't mind if some of these drawing lines are showing through. It's very much a three-layered approach I've taken here, where I've got the drawing, the loose and lively wet in wet painting, and then just a little bit more of a controlled approach for the finishing touches. So now I'm grabbing some titanium white and just putting the mildest touch of the ultramarine blue in there. And I'm going to use that to kind of subdue a lot of the pure white that is currently showing through from the unpainted paper. On the head of the animal. And that's actually looking a lot bluer on camera, at least on the little monitor I'm looking at, than it is in reality. So it's actually quite a pale blue in reality. But now I'm coming in with pure white. I'm just picking out a few highlights here and there. Let's bring the camera back a bit because I think it's sort of affecting the colour balance of the image that you're seeing. So we'll add a little bit more of that orange colour, orangey brown colour around the nose here. And then that same colour I can use for the bit of the eye that's showing. It's not much showing underneath the lid, but that's not too bad. And then come back in with my pure ultramarine blue, and we'll draw in again some of these lines that have been lost around the nose, well, lines and areas of shadow. Tricky call as to what to do with the eye, because there isn't much showing, but I think if I have the eye wide open it's going to kind of look a bit weird because it's not the natural situation. So I put a little bit of a dark line in there to indicate that there is a pupil in the eye. And then that same colour, that deep shadow colour, I can use to just refine this jawline a little bit. And then I'm going to extend that region of shadow that I've just put down, just so that it's not too obvious that I just outlined the jaw. Touch of pure titanium white coming in now. Perhaps a little bit watery, more watery than I intended. So that's not working too bad. So grabbing some of my shadow colour again. Touch of pure white again. And I'll use that same pure white just for a little highlight in the eye. Which I may have placed slightly too high. I just smudged that, but that's okay, actually that's worked rather better than what I had. So let's keep the smudge and then just put I'm not sure that was the right thing to do at all. Okay, I'm going to need to repaint that eye in a moment, but we'll do that in a second. So, okay, I'm going to leave the animal for the moment. let's bring the camera back, and what I'm going to do is just hopefully put in a little bit of foliage. Let's hit that with the water spray just to get it moving. And lift off some of those runs. So there's a hint of a tree there. And then I'm just kind of tempted to, even though it's not the right colour, just tempted to make the toes blue. I don't know why. But I think that kind of works okay. And then kind of come in with that same blue colour, just darken some of that blue highlight that I had there. I think it was the pale highlight was distracting from the line of the nose, and it wasn't looking very solid or well defined. So I think by popping that in, that bit of blue, I think that's helped that area. Come in with a pale yellow. Go paler again. Coming back in with almost completely pure white. Back in with the blue. And I've zoomed right out on my reference, making use of some of those blue lines that I put in before. Just looking at this area as a pattern of light and dark shapes. Then I'm going to stick with that colour, but I'm adding a little bit of burnt umber to it. Just subdue that up at that end. And then we can go with a little more burnt umber. Touch of pure white. That's looking a bit better there, I think. Now I want to add a little more warmth to the colouring of the animal. Put a little bit of pink in on the belly. But what I'm going to do is grab, this is a mix of cad red and the white. I'm going to put a bit of the orange in there. Put a bit more of the red. Just the tiniest touch of the blue. We'll see what this looks like. Oh, I quite like that. I think it adds quite a lot to the sort of colours we've got going on here. So we'll just put a few touches of copper, really, coppery orange. I think it just helps break up some of these very dark shadows. Perhaps keep going with